Hello, hello, hello. How are
Hi,
you, my
Jamie.
friend?
I'm
Hi.
good. How are you?
So
I'm so
good.
happy that you're here. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
thank you for having me. Thank you so much. This is such an honor. This is such an honor to be here. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. No, it truly is such an honor. And, I was chatting with my community a few minutes before you came on. And right now, I would love if everyone who's on right now, if we could just take a moment to just send Jamie some love and just hold space for her for a moment because she's been doing this all day and she's been doing this all week. And, I just want to take a moment to just honor you for giving us your time because you've been here sharing, giving yourself to the world. And so, just for a few minutes, thank you, Kitty Cash. Keep sending your hearts. Let's just send Jamie some love because she created space for us today. And I'm so grateful.
Serena, you're going to make me cry right off the beginning. Thank you so much.
Well, I love you, yes. I mean, I'm going to show you the advanced copy of the book that you sent me.
Wow.
All my highlights.
Wow.
I cried so many times throughout this book. It is, I think it's just one of the my most favorite things I've ever picked up and read. And there are bookmarks because these are bookmarks, different colors for things I need to remind myself of. And things I need to remind maybe someone else of, maybe my team. And, I'm going to do an intro. I've already done an intro, but I'll do it again because you're here. Everyone who's just joined, we're with Jamie Kern Lima, who, first of all, is just a magical, beautiful human being. And I'm so grateful to have even met her. And thank you to Sarah and Craig. I don't know if you guys are on or if you guys are on a plane right now, but thank you so much for bringing this beautiful person into my life. Thank you to Tony Robbins for putting her on stage at Business Mastery and letting us see her magic. Jamie is the founder of It Cosmetics. She's a speaker, a philanthropist, an angel, a thought leader, and clearly an author. And she's someone who, as I've already talked about 10 minutes earlier, she started her company in her living room. And through just grit and grind and the belief that she could make her dreams come true, she turned that company into a $1 billion company, sold it to L'Oreal. And now she's here turning those $1 billion into a like energetically, just like a billions. I don't even know how to explain it. Like just the energy that comes forth from you to make even more impact is incredible. So not the kind of intro you probably got in the last 50 interviews, but I'm like, everyone's talked about the same thing. I just want to just acknowledge you as a soul and an energy. So thank you again so much.
Well, thank you. That's how I feel about you, by the way. That's why I was so excited to be here. And whenever I go on, I mean, everyone. First of all, can we just show appreciation for Serena in the comments, because every so often, if I'm like in the middle of a million things going on, if I ever happen to hop on your Instagram, especially you live, and you guys tell me if you agree with me here live, I just instantly feel like everything's better. I just instantly feel lighter. I instantly feel more joy. I instantly feel more presence. I instantly feel more love. I instantly feel like I can get through more things, more hard things. And you are the magic one, my friend. So I am super, super honored to be here with you. And I feel like I don't know where I first got one of your products. It may have been a Tony Robbins gift bag. I don't know where it was. Is that where it was?
Yeah.
And I have them in. Yeah, and I have them in my space actually where I write in my house, and I just feel like they're so. And I put this sweater on for our live because the color reminded me of some of your stuff I have in my room. But anyways, I'm honored to be here. Is my point. I think you're amazing. It's an honor to share space with you and everyone in your community too. So thank you. That is a lot of notes for Believe It book, and I I love that. That's probably my favorite moment of anyone holding up the book.
I have this one here, but I'll go back and read it. And it's so funny that you wore that color for me because I wore this color for you. Because I know
See how similar we are? We're so similar. I felt that the first time I ever watched you. And I think, were you with Craig and Sarah? Were you guys in Sedona? Was that the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you first reached out, or I reached out to you, I can't remember, but yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that you've already said it so many times, but if you could just give anybody who doesn't already know your story and hasn't heard me say it 4 times, just a little bit of background, and then I would really love to dive into some parts of this book that I feel like is so more than magical. I mean, there's life lessons here that are beyond being an entrepreneur. Just being a person and being a woman and being a mother. And I would love to actually talk a little bit about that during our time.
Sure. Yeah. I think most people probably know, if they know of It Cosmetics, or if they happen to have heard of me or Google my story. Typically, people know kind of that headline that's out there, which is Denny's waitress starts dream in her living room and went through this really multi-year season of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rejections. Eventually built the company I started, the idea I started in my living room, It Cosmetics. It's now today the largest luxury makeup company in the country, and L'Oreal acquired it in 2016. It was their largest U.S. acquisition to date for them, and it was a really wild journey. And after so many years of getting messages on Instagram from women and other entrepreneurs, a lot of messages saying like, oh, was it easy, or did you have a lot of connections, or did you just get really lucky, or seems like a fairy tale? And then they would share things with me, in confidence about how they're in a season of setback or rejection or hard times. And I realized, oh, wow, so often, and by the way, I love that you go live for this reason exactly, but so often we only just see the highlight reels out there, and the success stories, or everything just looks good online. And I think that why I wrote this book was because I realized, like, if we don't ever share the real stories behind the stories, like the real stuff, then people feel like they're alone in their own rejection or their own self-doubt, or their own, or they're embarrassed by and like starting to just second guess their own gut instincts because they're not having proof of success around them, and all those things, right? And so I wanted to share all of those stories, and all, not just professional ones, but personal ones too. Because my story, yes, it's building It Cosmetics. Yes, it's all those things that are in all the headlines. But my real story is one of a girl who went from not believing in herself to believing in herself, and not trusting herself, to learning how to actually like hear my own intuition and then trust it. And a girl who went from doubting she's enough to like on that journey to learning and knowing she's enough. And I know it's not just my story, it's the story of so many people probably with us live right now on their own journeys, right? Of learning to believe in themselves and trust themselves and know they're enough and step into all of who they are. And so that's really who the book is for. It's just really anybody who's who knows they're made for more, but sometimes still doubts it anyways, and like wants to break through that barrier of self-doubt. So
yes, and I really feel that is everyone. Male, female, it doesn't matter what your background is what you're always reminding us. It's just like we all go through that self-doubt, in different parts of our journeys. And a quote that I have, and actually now I'm going to have about 6 quotes of yours, but a quote that I kind of followed is just, no one is you, and that is your power. And that is something that I kept in my mind when I went through, and continue to, challenges and the ups and downs in the entrepreneurial journey. But just as a female, just as a female trying to prove her worth, so to speak, which in your book, you remind us that we're perfect exactly the way we are. And so I know a lot of people have already got the book, and right here, loving this book. I totally believe it. Been so many messages that people have already gotten your book, and so
it's only been out 48 hours into the world. It's brand new. It's amazing.
And it's
2 years of so much work. 2 years of like oh my gosh, everything I have, but all of a sudden it's out. Yeah, so I'm so
Well,
excited.
it's out and it's number one. It's number one in Amazon already, and it's number one on Barnes and Noble. And now that you said that, actually, could we, for a second, move away from the book and just, how are you feeling? You know, that's like 2 years. It's like having a baby for 2 years, you know? And there's the part of your book that I would love to talk about, which is, you know, when you're trying to have a baby too. So, like, how are you feeling 2 days into birthing this baby?
It's so vulnerable, and I think, you know, I love your quote. There's only one of you, and that's, you know, like, that's, I remember that a lot, because I think that for us to show up as we authentically are, like fully authentically, right? There's a Cinderella quote that says the bravest thing we can ever do is be seen as we truly are.
Yeah.
And I think that, to your point, exactly, that's all, each of our superpowers. It's each of our magic. And 95%, and here's the thing, Serena, and I know you are such a boss, so you'll understand all this, but for so many years, I had to be the strong one. I had to be the leader. I had to be the CEO. I had to be the person. We had over 1,000 employees. We did a $1 billion+ acquisition, and, you know, became the top brand and all this. So I was always the one, you know, showing up in this role, keeping it together for, you know, and 95% of everything I share in the book I've never shared before, because it's all that stuff that it feels very vulnerable to just fully, like, pull all the curtains back and be like, here's what really happens. So many times when someone literally looked me in the eye and told me I'm not enough, or I'm not. And we all have moments like that where someone tells you you're not enough, or you're not the right fit, or I don't believe in you, or and like, this book is about, what do you do when that happens? And I talk about all these real painful things that normally in life they're embarrassing to share. And I talk about so many failures I've had and things I've done wrong, and also some of the things I did right that were life changing in there. So how I'm feeling is super vulnerable. But I also know, and I think this is why you do what you do also, I know what I'm doing is not about me. And that is what is literally having me run completely on gratitude right now. You know, people are just starting to share their reviews of the book and their thoughts, and like, two things happened that just completely were just, one person said, I read Believe It, and I made the decision to trust myself this week, and it worked. And I was just like, oh. Another person said, the other thing that has come up a couple times was, when I was reading the book, I found myself rooting for you, but by the end of the book, I found myself rooting for myself. And I was just like, that. So those things are what I'm like, I'm grasping onto, and you know, I think, just not to make it about you for a minute, but like, I can't help it. I just think that's how people feel when they watch you live and your work and stuff like that. And so I think anytime, no matter what our work is, right? What our work or our passion or our hobby or the things we create or the things we ideate, when we know that it's in service or something bigger than ourselves, you know, it's kind of like that life force that keeps us just filled up and all in. And I'm donating, I don't know if I shared with you, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds of the book, also the author proceeds. Yeah. So it's just a really, I hope it's just a big force for good for everybody. But it's a big week of firsts, and I honestly, like, I dealt with self-doubt this week, right? It was my first ever live event. So we had, I think, 216,000 people join live, and lots of speakers. Your friends, Tony Robbins was there, and Tony Robbins spoke, and Robin Roberts, so many great people. But it's a big week of firsts, so putting myself out there, but just honestly with a full heart and grateful and all of that. So I'm grateful to be here with you. So,
well, I thank you so much for sharing that. And I told everyone, you know, before you came on, because I jumped on about 10-15 minutes earlier, I said, you will fall in love with this soul the minute she comes on and you see her face and you feel her energy, because it is that authenticity. I had written down, you know, because I was thinking, how should I introduce Jamie? She's probably heard the same introduction 1,500 times and probably 20 times today. And I was thinking about the 4 words that I would use to describe you. And that's authentic, courageous, love, and just humility. And I feel that, and I haven't yet to hug you in person, and that's just 4 words. I mean, I can think of like a dozen more. There's so much. There's grit. There's hardworking. There's brilliant. There's so many things. But the things that pull my heart are those words. Like, you're so authentic, and for me, and I know that other people are gonna have this feeling. I read this book, and yes, what I do is in service of others, but there's a whole layer that I don't share, right? Like, there's a whole layer of my journey that I don't share. And I cried so many times reading this book. But you've inspired me by what you said. So Jamie's always talking about how it's more than you, it's bigger than you. What people say about you doesn't matter, right? It's about what you're teaching. And so I made a commitment after hearing of Business Mastery. And now after this, I'm fast tracking that commitment to sharing that story, with had to do with my health and things that I had gone through. So I just want to thank you for that. I'm grateful for this moment that I can thank you in person for 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 really igniting that fire within me and reminding me that it's about the service to others, every part of that journey, painful or not. So thank you for that so much.
I think, thank you for that. Wow. I think, this whole, we're in a time where, and we're raised, a lot of us are raised this way, but then now with social media, we're in this time where I think more than ever, people feel a lot of pressure to almost, in the strangest way, hide parts of who they are and kind of like show up as their, maybe their representative, or only show the best parts of themselves they think other people want to see. Or, and especially for women, we so often feel unqualified to be doing whatever it is we're doing. And I had so many lessons that I talk about in the book of, and just lessons I've gone through in life, of learning this, like, the hard way and the real way. And there's so many thought leaders and researchers that have done so many studies on proving how the only way we can ever have a real authentic human connection with another person is if we fully show up authentically, right? And for everyone joining us live right now, it's like that can mean so many different things. It could be, if it's only possible to have a real connection with another human being, if you fully show up authentically, not as your representative, not as who you think they want to see or whatever. This is the same for relationships with people, but it's also the same for your customers and for your community. And like in my journey, to fast track about 50 million stories in the book and hop into when I finally, after 3 years, got turned down forever and finally got a shot on QVC and eventually was going on a lot. I had the blessing of meeting now tens of thousands of entrepreneurs. And QVC's live broadcast to 100 million homes on television, and you go on and you sell, and you have to hit a sales goal, or you don't come back. And it's a lot, a lot of pressure.
She's totally toning it down. It's crazy what you have to do on QVC, and she didn't even pre-frame with the pressure that she had going into it. Maybe you could just give everyone a little backstory, because this goes back to what you're saying about being a boss and having to be so strong, and that's the part of your story I resonated so deeply with. But not everyone knows, although there are a lot of people really saying your book has changed my life, just about your book. I love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, let's let everyone know. I'm so happy to see everyone's comments too. Thank you guys. Hello. I love reading them too. So Jamie going into QVC, like, let's let some of those people know, like, what that even meant. Some people may not know. Well, okay, so a lot of people talk about their why for their dream or their idea, or their goal or whatever. And in building at cosmetics, yes, of course. So I have hereditary rosacea, bright red, bumpy, like no cure for it. I've seen so many dermatologists. And although after my book tour, I have questions for you about
food.
Oh
But
yes,
I'll
I'm
wait.
here. You
I love
text
it.
me anything you need.
But so after years of trying to find makeup that worked, nothing did, and that's why I created It Cosmetics, and skipping over a lot of the stuff because in the book I go through all the stuff. But anyways, in the process of it, I had this idea, and this really wasn't being done at all at the time. Where if I could actually launch a product that really worked, I'd want to use real women as models, like all ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges, like I have, and I had this whole vision, but it wasn't being done at the time. And so for 3 years, all the department stores, all the beauty retailers, QVC, everybody said, no, this is not going to work. They said women will only buy makeup from people with flawless skin. I'm like, yeah, but intuitively, I'm like, but if I have problem skin and I don't see someone else who's looks like me, how do I know it will work for me? And every one of them, and this was for 3 years, we got down, we were barely staying alive as a company. So, I mean, we were doing 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, couldn't afford to hire people. It was a lot for a lot of years. And we eventually got one yes, which I share how in the book. And it's a crazy story. We eventually got one yes to get one shot live on QVC. And what it meant was we had a 10-minute window, and I got to go live and we were, by the way, we were only doing like 2 to 3 orders a day on our website. And I learned in this one 10-minute segment on QVC, I had to sell 6,000 units of our concealer or not come back. And to make a long story really, really short, it was consignment deal, meaning we had to borrow money to make the product and ship it to them. And we were only going to get paid for whatever sold. If it didn't sell, we'd have to take it all back and we would be bankrupt. And we had everything on the line for this one shot on QVC. And I worked with these outside third-party consultants that help a lot of people sell on television and in retail stores. They help a lot of people, but they all told me, Serena, the same thing. They said, if you're going to have any chance of succeeding, here's what you need to do. You need to have models with absolutely perfect skin that all look the same. And I'm just like, and it was so stressful. And because I knew everything came down to this one airing, and I flew out to QVC a week early and sat in this rental car in the parking lot, just like all alone, staring at the front door, praying and crying. And because I felt this pressure and self-doubt started to kick in, I thought, okay, well, maybe they're right. They're experts for a reason. But every time I thought about that, I would get this gut feeling. And I think in life, like I think it's so easy to talk ourselves out of our own truth because we hear, other people's opinions that even though they don't sit right with us, like, oh, well, maybe. And then we hear, all the noise, we hear the lack of success around us. In my case, lack of traction in my own business. All those things were so loud. And I think I did a lot of things wrong. And I talk about those in the book. But one of the things I did right was when I had a real strong gut feeling, I made the decision to trust it. And I remember sitting in this parking lot, praying, crying, like trying to figure out what to do. And I just remembered why I was doing what I was doing. And I had this moment where I was like, you know what? If I'm going to get one shot, I would rather, and I would imagine the women sitting at home that maybe were going to turn the TV on and see me. And I realized I'd rather have them, even if they didn't buy anything, I'd rather have them see me showing my own bare face with bright red rosacea, showing all different women who look like them, calling them beautiful, meeting it. I'd rather do that than sell a whole crap load of product and stand for nothing. But it's hard to do those things when everything's on the line. It's hard to live our values when everything's on the line. And so, long story short, I went into for that one 10-minute segment, and I remember I was in the studio. I'm not nervous for television, but in that moment, everything was on the line, and I was sweating. Like I wore double Spanx that day, and I was just dripping sweat through them. I was like shaking, and I remember the 10-minute clock was like 9:59, 9:58. I knew we only had 10 minutes. And I learned, you probably know this, I didn't know this. I learned right before that you're not guaranteed that time. If you're not selling well, your time might go from like 9 minutes and jump to 2 minutes and you're done. And so it was so much pressure. But I remember the moment my bright red rosacea came up on national television, and we went over to all the models, all ages and skin tones and skin challenges and sizes and shapes. And I remember there was about a minute left in the cell and the presentation, and the host was like, "The tan shade's almost gone, the deep shade's almost gone." And I was like, and then I remember the big sold out sign came up at the 10-minute mark. I started crying on national TV, and I remember my husband came running through the double doors, and I'm like, "Real women have spoken." I was like sobbing, and he's like, "We're not going bankrupt." And I was like, "Oh." And that one airing turned to 5 that year, 101 the next year, and then we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. So I've done over 1,000 live shows there, but I only share that because for 3 years they had said no. And and here's the thing is like, every time I would check in with my gut, like in those 3 years, it kept telling me you're supposed to keep going.
Yeah.
And I just want to share that because I think so many of us, especially women, but everyone, we have a gut feeling, and maybe we're going after our dream, or maybe someone listening right now in your community is like in the midst of trying to manifest something they believe in, and they're not getting traction, and people are telling them no, and when that happens to us, we start to think our gut is wrong. But I believe our gut's always right. I do, and I have so much to share with you about that whole thing. But like, I was working in news before I started it, and my gut told me, and I thought that was my dream job. But my gut told me, no, you need to start at cosmetics. And so I just want to say that you don't always need to keep going, because I think sometimes knowing when to let go of a dream is as important as when to go after one. But the victory is learning to hear yourself and trust yourself in the whole journey.
Yeah. I mean, you had an amazing line. I'm like, where is it? It's in the book. And you said it. It's about how you show up. It's how you respond to the experiences in your journey. And I just thought that was something, like, I'll blast that. Just that, there's a million quotes I'm going to blast for you, but that's one of them. It's just such a good reminder, right? It's just a good reminder that it's what you know and what you believe, and to not lose sight of that. And that can evolve, right? Like with what you're doing, you thought you were going to be a reporter, you thought you were going to be an anchor, but so I think that's really important. And something that you share, and you shared here, and you shared in your book as well, that I really want to just point out, is that you still have self-doubt. Here you are. This has been one of the biggest weeks, I'm sure, of your life. You've all these accomplishments and the impact that you're making on just millions and millions of people, but yet you still have doubt. And so I know there's so many people out there that are just like, well, what do you do? Like, if you have achieved all these things and you still have doubt, like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So a couple things, and you know what? The first thing too, and I thank you for bringing that up, by the way, because now I've had the blessing, right, in the past several years, about meeting tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, but also meeting some of my dream mentors that I watched Oprah in my living room as a little girl and dreamed of meeting her. She was my mentor from afar. Never knew she'd be my mentor in real life one day. There's so many amazing women I had the blessing of meeting, and here's why I share that, because I now know every single one of us has self-doubt still. Every single person has self-doubt. Every single woman I've ever had the blessing of meeting still gets their feelings hurt, still has self-doubt, still deals with imposter syndrome. And the reason I share that, and I love that you brought this up, is I think it's so important, because when these things happen to us, it's so easy to keep it into ourselves and just think there's something wrong with us. And just the simple fact of knowing that literally we all have these same feelings, we're all the same in that way, that alone, I feel like shrinks the whole everything of it. That's not a word, but I'm really tired, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like you're not so alone. You're not so, and that's how you made me feel. And you guys, you've got to get this book. This is how you're going to feel, because you get lonely. You talk about it throughout the book, and you do in this journey when you doubt yourself. And you made me feel like I wasn't alone in those feelings,
Well, there's like so many things, I talk about this whole idea of how I learned the power of your microphone, and who you let speak into it and who you don't, and who you might in your own life need to take the microphone back on. And I also talk a lot about the volume dial, and there's so many stories where when self-doubt would come into my mind, or maybe somebody said something, there's so many people, as you know, in my book, that had said things to me that I was like, oh, and I had to learn, and we all do, how to turn down the volume on words that we do not want to take root in us, and including our own self-doubt, including our own inner critic, and turn up the volume on things that remind us of who we are, that remind us that where we come from or past mistakes do not determine, or even where we're at today, don't determine where we're going, and don't determine what's possible for us. And I talk a lot in the book about how to do this and how to really implement these things into your life, because they're universal for all of us, and we all need to do that. And the other big thing that, and I don't know if you remember this part, but I talk a lot. I just loved your quote you shared earlier, and I think that one of my favorite parts, or the things I'm most excited about, I guess, is just this idea too of everyone embracing the idea that their own authenticity is their superpower, instead of like what's wrong with them, it's what's right with them. And I think that, I talk a lot about how authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees failure. And the one thing I was going to share about the QVC piece was that after 8 years of being in that green room and being there for over 1,000 shows myself, and seeing tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, when I look, most of them didn't make it, and most of them didn't last, right? And when I look at what is that commonality, that through line with the ones that actually make it, the ones that last, the ones that build something that matters, literally all of them, it's the ones that show up fully authentically, like the same on air as they are back in the green room and no one's watching, for better or worse. Like, they're not the same personalities, they're not the same backgrounds, they're not the same level of kindness, none of it, but they're authentic, the ones that are authentic. And I think that lesson is, it makes us all feel so much more free when we embrace it, because then comparing ourselves to whoever else or whatever else is going on there is a massive waste of time and a recipe for failure. Like, literally embracing who we are fully, like the good parts, the bad parts, the quirky parts, the messy, like all of it is like your superpower. You know what I mean? It's like your superpower. And I put in the book that Dr. Seuss quote that you have to be odd to be number one. And I just think there's so many stories in there that I hope and pray help every single person step into like all of who they are, with so much more confidence and self-belief and self-trust. That's my hope and prayer for the book. So
I mean, I think your prayers are already being met. Just the people that I know that have gotten your book, that have read your book, I mean, we all voice the impact that you have on each one of us. And it's, whether or not someone is a super successful entrepreneur, I'll say in quotes, super successful, because everyone has their own definition of success, or if someone's just getting started, what you shared really has had a deep impact. I mean, just you talking about being authentic, that allows you to ask for help. I have that bookmarked right here. Like, you can to ask for help. That's part of it.
It was a hard lesson. It was a hard lesson for anyone, part of your community with this live right now, who's like always the lone wolf, or like, I got this, I don't need to count on anyone, I'm independent. I always, that was me. I always thought that was a badge of honor. I didn't even want to get married. I was like, I don't need a man, like nothing. And like, but what I learned, I guess this is a long story, so I'll save it maybe for another time. But I just learned that for me, I learned the hard lesson that being a lone wolf wasn't actually a badge of honor. For me, it came from a deep-seated fear that I wasn't worthy of other people showing up for me. And when I had that realization, I was like, wow, I need to love myself enough to ask for help, to ask for other people to show up for me the way I show up for them. It was a big lesson for me that shifted how I do life. And just learning life's not meant to do alone, So,
it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful share. It's so many beautiful stories. I mean, I really tried not to cry while we were talking, because there's so many times I'm like, oh, and I think about how you made me feel, that I know you've made other people feel, and it's all helping them grow. So thank you so much. I don't know if we have any more time. We can keep going for a few minutes.
Oh yeah, the whole team is like, you're 5 over. They're yelling about my next interview.
Oh no!
But I love you so much. I want to tell you, like, I don't know why this might sound really crazy. I feel like you and I are going to go to Sedona together, like maybe with a group of friends. I would love to, if you're ever up for that, I would love, I think that would be so much fun. I feel like, coming out of this 10-year journey of building It Cosmetics, and then like 2 years of just like pouring everything out into the world in this book. And I've never taken a real season of rest. And I'm like, I just have that. I don't know. I keep having this thought, and it was like, I feel like you're going to be in Sedona. That might sound really crazy, but if it's meant to happen, it will. But that would be really fun.
It is one of the most magical places. It's where I go to heal. And it would be an honor and a joy to go together with you and to take you there. I'll take you up to the vortex where I bless all my crystals and I do Reiki. I'll go up there for hours and send blessings out. I'm getting, I have goosebumps. It's happening, like, for sure. We're definitely doing this. And thank you also for my beautiful bracelet. I just want to, I shared it like on stories earlier, but thank you so much for this.
That was made by one of my dear friends, Leah Valencia Key, who, she was homeless. I don't know if you've met her. So she was raised homeless in the projects of Philadelphia. Eventually, when she wasn't homeless, she lived in the projects of Philadelphia, and in a really tough upbringing. And her mother would always tell her, your predicament doesn't determine your destiny. And she eventually lost her mom, but she was the only person, and still to this day is the only person that ever figured out how to go to school, and her whole family. And she just launched her jewelry line, Valencia Key, on QVC. And what's wild is she went from homeless to 100 million homes live on QVC this year. And her story is so special, and I don't think anyone's really heard her story yet. She's a really special human being. And so I bought all of her bracelets at full price, because once you can do that as a friend, you got to do it. You got to show up for your friends. And she made those special Believe It bracelets for the launch of the book. And maybe someone could type it in. I don't know if anyone, her site is Valencia Key, Leah, but it's Leah Valencia Key, LIA.
Her stuff is so.
Oh yeah, there you go.
You guys.
Perfect.
And you know what? I'm happy, if you think it'll help her to share her story here, I'm happy to support her and share her here as well.
I'm telling you, y'all will be crying together. You guys will be crying together, laughing together. She is somebody she's the person I call when I'm tempted to let someone steal my joy. She's the person I call when I need to be reminded of who I am and what I'm made of. And she's really special. You would love her. You guys have very similar energies, actually, just like lights in the world. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, that's her. So I'll figure out how to connect the two of you on Instagram for sure too.
Yes, and I know you have
She'll cry when I tell her you're wearing her bracelet. She's gonna cry. By the way.
Oh my God! Yeah, I'm here, and I posted it, and I'm happy to share it. I will, and after this, I will share all the links again. You guys, you have to get this book. It will change your life, and beyond that, you'll just keep going back to it. It's just a good reminder. So thank you so much, Jamie. I know you went over time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. No, it was an honor.
And let's plan Sedona.
Okay. Let's do it. Let's do it. Right. I feel like it's happening. I never say stuff like that unless I mean it. So I really feel like it is. So that would be really fun. That would be really fun.
Sounds so good.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Right,
bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.